The wind bites. The long black weepers of your bonnet trail to your waist, fluttering against the cold. You do not reach up to hold it. A mourner does not fidget. A mourner does not adjust. A mourner simply endures. The heavy smell of crepe fills your lungs. It is suffocating. The church door feels miles away. You are walking, slowly, deliberately, every step measured, every step heavy with borrowed grief. The crepe band around your tall silk hat falls across your forehead, obscuring your vision. The church door is somewhere ahead. If you perform well today, William may send word of another engagement, perhaps this afternoon, perhaps tomorrow morning. You have lost count of the churches where you have been called to mourn. The factory wages keep you alive. Barely. In Victorian London, barely is never enough. As a woman, you learn this faster than most. In Victorian London, a working woman survives by dividing herself. A mill hand by night. A professional mourner by day. This is what you are. This is all you are, for now. The lint and the crepe. 2 worlds, 1 body, no rest. You reach the church door. You take your position. 1 hand on the mourning staff. Long, black, the brass tip resting on the stone step. Your back straight. Your chin slightly lowered. Your eyes fixed on the ground before your feet. Unblinking, unfocused, present and absent simultaneously. This is the work. As each guest arrives, black-clad, somber, some genuinely grieving, some merely performing it just as you are, you incline your head. Slightly, precisely. But this work, mourning, this you chose. On London's crowded streets, people stop when they see you. They pause mid-stride. They lower their voices. They move aside, not out of fear, but out of something older than fear. Respect, perhaps. You are not sure what it is, but you are seen. The last guest passes through the door. The church falls quiet behind you. Your shift is nearly done. You hear footsteps on the stone path, not a mourner's footsteps. You raise your eyes, carefully, just enough, without breaking the expression. It is William. William does not come to churches. William sends notes. William sends his boy with a folded paper and a time and an address. William does not come himself, not unless something is different. He stops beside you. He looks at the church door and speaks quietly. "There is another engagement," he says, "different from the usual." You do not turn your head. You do not change your expression. You are still on duty. There may be late arrivals. There may be eyes on the street. But behind the crepe veil, behind the borrowed sorrow, you are listening very carefully. What do you think he's about to ask? Drop your guess in the comments. The engagement is not a funeral. William explains it quickly, quietly, still looking at the church door rather than at you. An old man. A wealthy family. The Harrington family. You would know the name if you moved in different circles, which you do not. The father, Lord Harrington, is in his final years. His mind is, William pauses, searching for the word, diminished. The old man's mind has retreated into the past, as old minds sometimes do. He no longer knows what year it is. He no longer knows who is in the room, but he knows one thing with absolute certainty. He wants his daughter. His daughter, Beatrice Harrington, died 3 weeks ago. You were at that funeral. You stood at the door of St. George's, Hanover Square, in your bombazine and your crepe, and you inclined your head as the family passed. The daughter was your age, William says. Your colouring, your build. In the old man's current condition, he would not know the difference. You stand very still. You would visit him daily, sometimes twice. You would sit with him, talk with him, be present. The family will pay well, considerably better than a day's mourning. You look at the church door. You think about the factory, the 12-hour shifts, the noise that follows you home and sits at the foot of your bed while you try to sleep. When do I begin? You ask. A stranger's grief, a stranger's face, a stranger's name, and it will be yours. Could you become someone else for money? The clothes arrive the next morning. Dark merino, white collar, grey gloves. The boots alone cost more than a week's mill wages. You put them on. In the mirror, someone else entirely. Someone who has never stood at a church door. Someone who has never counted coins before sleeping. You straighten the collar, pressing it flat with both hands, smoothing it at the edges, the way you have seen respectable women do in the windows of Mayfair shops. You practice the posture, shoulders back, chin level, the particular stillness of a young woman who has always had enough warmth, enough food, enough space in a room to simply exist without apology. You have never had enough, but you know how to perform it. You are ready. The Harrington house is on Belgrave Square. You have walked past houses like this before. Everyone in London has, but you have never been admitted through the front door. The butler shows you to the upstairs sitting room without expression, which means he has been instructed, which means the family has made their peace with this arrangement. Lord Harrington is in the chair by the window. His hands rest on the arms of the chair, pale and still. His eyes are closed. Then he hears your footstep. His eyes open, and something happens in his face, something that moves through it like light through water. And he says, in a voice that is perfectly steady, perfectly certain, "Beatrice." You sit down beside him. You take his hand. His fingers close around yours immediately, tightly. The grip of someone holding something they are afraid will disappear again. "I'm here," you say. And he smiles, the smile of a man whose world has just been restored to him. You sit with him for an hour. He tells you about his morning. The light was good, he says. It came through the window at exactly the right angle. He tells you about a horse he once owned 30 years ago, a grey mare named Constance. He asks if you remember Constance. "Of course," you say. "Of course I remember." He squeezes your hand. When you leave, he watches you go with an expression of such complete trust that you have to look away before you reach the door. The days find their rhythm. Morning, the Harrington house. Lord Harrington's sitting room, the chair by the window, his hand in yours. He tells you the same stories most days. The grey mare, a fishing trip in Scotland, a dinner party in 1831, where someone said something that still makes him laugh. You learn the stories. You learn when to laugh, when to nod, when to say "of course" and "I remember" and "tell me again." Afternoon, back to your own clothes. The bombazine, the crepe, the morning staff. Another church, another door, another family's grief. You stand. You endure. You incline your head at precisely the right angle. You move between two worlds, and in both of them, you are performing. The difference is this: in the black dress, at the church door, you are invisible inside the performance. You are grief itself, a symbol, a shape in dark fabric. No one looks at your face. In the Harrington house, he looks at you the way a man looks at something he loves completely, without reservation, without question, with the absolute certainty of someone who has known you your entire life. He looks at you and sees his daughter, yes, but underneath that, he simply looks at you, and for 1 hour each morning, in a house on Belgrave Square, in clothes that are not yours, in a name that is not yours, you are seen, entirely. You do not know what to do with this. No one has ever looked at you like this, like you belong to someone, not as labour, not as a hired performance, but in the way that matters most. Something is happening in your chest that you do not have a name for. You are not sure you are entirely performing anymore. 2 years pass the way warmth passes, slowly, quietly, until you cannot remember what it felt like before. You read to him, Dickens mostly. He likes Dickens. He laughs at the same passages every time, with the same surprise, as if he's hearing them for the first time. Perhaps he is. You have stopped trying to determine what he remembers and what he does not. It no longer seems to matter. You walk with him in the garden when the weather allows. He moves slowly now, more slowly than when you first came, his hand on your arm, his steps careful on the gravel path. He points out the same rose bush every time, dark red, climbing the south wall. Your mother planted it, he tells you. Do you remember that day? You were very small. You cried because your hands got dirty. In the evenings sometimes, you sit by your own window and try to separate the two halves of your days. The girl in the fine merino dress who reads Dickens to an old man in a warm room in Belgrave Square. The woman in the black bombazine who stands at church doors and mourns for strangers. You try to remember which one is you. The answer comes back the same way it always does, quietly, without drama. Both. Neither. It depends on the hour. Lord Harrington begins to slip further in the second year. There are mornings when he does not know you, not as his daughter, not as anyone. He looks at you across the sitting room with polite, distant eyes, the eyes of a man addressing a stranger at a dinner party. "Good morning," he says pleasantly. "Have we met?" You sit down beside him anyway. You take his hand anyway. You say, "Yes, a long time ago." The butler meets you at the door one morning in December. Not at the sitting room door, at the front door. This has never happened before. You know before he speaks what he is going to say. You have stood at enough church doors to recognize the particular stillness of a house that has just lost someone. "Lord Harrington passed in the night," he says, peacefully, in his chair. You stand on the doorstep in the grey December morning, your merino dress, your grey gloves, the clothes that were never yours. The family, the butler continues, would like you to attend the funeral in your professional capacity. The 2 years of morning nods, of 2 cups of tea, of corridors and quiet mercies, and then it is gone. "Of course," you say, "I will be there." The funeral is at St. Peter's, Eaton Square. You take your position at the church door, one hand on the mourning staff, back straight, chin lowered, eyes on the ground. The exact posture William requires, the exact posture you have held at 100 doors before this one. The family arrives, the guests file past. Some faces you half recognize from other funerals. There is a circuit to these things, the same people appearing and reappearing at the edges of one another's losses. And then the door closes, and the service begins inside, and you stand in the cold December air, alone at the top of the stone steps, and you wait. The wind moves your veil, the black weepers trail at your waist, the brass tip of your mourning staff rests against the stone. And something happens that has not happened before. Your eyes fill. You think about a man who looked at you, truly looked at you, and saw someone he loved completely, someone worthy of that look, someone who belonged in that room, in those clothes, in that life. The tears fall now, quietly, steadily, the way December rain falls. You are not grieving a stranger. You are grieving the sitting room, the chair by the window, the sound of his voice saying your name, not your name, never your name, but the way he said it, as if you were worth saying. For once, the grief on your face belongs entirely to you.